Yeah, in this class, we are going to talk about writing a sample test for web application. So let's see how we can do that. So first create a Java class and name it as sample test for web application. Take a main method. So we already have some capabilities in the last class, right? So let's take those capabilities and paste it here. Some of the capabilities you don't require when you are working for browser, when you're working for a web application on the browser. Okay, so you don't require this app package and app activity if you're testing a web application on the browser, on the mobile browser. You don't require app package and app activity. Okay, so let's say, so what is the app package for google.com or facebook.com? So we don't have any source for it, so we don't have to bother about that. Okay, so for web application testing on the Android mobile browser, you don't require app package and app activity. Just remove that. And platform name is required, platform version is required, and device name. If you're running your automation code on the emulator, make sure you give the Android emulator, and make sure you give the AVD, and that is the Android virtual device name, which you get it from on the top of the emulator. Okay, so nexus underscore 4 underscore ap underscore 21. So we are done with that. And one more capability you need to set. Okay, so that is browser name, cap start. So it's a web application, and you are going to open that web application on a browser. What browser it is? Is that Android browser or is that Chrome? You need to mention that. Mobile capability, type browser name. So that is browser. Okay, so if you're going to test your web application on the Chrome, so make sure you give Chrome instead of browser. You can give Chrome. So now I'm going to test the web application on the Android browser. And once your desired capabilities are done, once the desired capabilities are created, okay, let's create the Android driver with the URL and the capabilities object. You get to see a checked exception. So handle by using add throws declaration or surround with try catch. I'm going to use add throws declaration. Now the driver is set, the driver object is created. So let's make sure you open a URL. So what URL? Depends on the application that you are going to test. Let's say I'm going to test google.com. So https www.google.com. Okay. And once I open the google.com on the Android browser, I get to see a text field, right? So let's enter some text on the text field. Enter some text. Let's say enter Selenium or Appium. So we are working for Appium. So let's type Appium on the text field. So to enter the text Appium on the text field, okay, so there are two things, as I told earlier. First, you need to identify the text field element. Once you identify the text field element, then perform send case. Now the question is, how can I identify the text field on the browser, on the Android browser? So to identify the text field, to identify the text field element, to identify any element, so Appium has couple of locators, right? We have ID, name, input, that is tag name, XPath, CSS, link text, partial link text, accessibility ID, couple of locators are there. So using one of the locator, so let's identify the element. Okay, so let's open the emulator, open the browser. So it will take some time. Have the patience. Let's type google.com. And by the way, how do you locate the elements on the, how do you locate the elements for a web application? It's nothing but finding the elements on the finding the elements for a web application which is open on the browser. That could be either Android or that could be either Chrome. So to do that, so we already explained that. So I already explained that you need to use ADB plugin. You need to use the ADB plugin. So using the ADB plugin, and that ADB plugin has to be installed on the Chrome browser. Using that ADB plugin, you can able to find the elements and its locators and its values. Okay, so let's do that. So this page has some problem. Let's refresh. Okay, let it refresh. Meanwhile, you can click on the ADB plugin, select view inspection targets. So let's refresh it. So when you're working on the emulator, you definitely need some patience. It will take huge time. So it's going to take some time. Let's wait for a moment. Yeah, it's opened, right? So let's inspect it. Again, the inspection also will take time because the page is still loading here. So let the page load, then it will work. Yeah, it's loading. So let's identify the element of text field. So this is the body, and let's go inside. This is the header, and this is the footer. So, and the between we need it. Let's go inside until you find the text field. You actually have to narrow down your search. So we don't need that. We know this one. We don't need this one. It is not showing anything. So let's go to the second one. This is also okay. This is showing something. Let's go inside and select this button. Let's go inside. Okay, this button is selecting the search field. Search button. Okay, we don't need the search button. We need the search field, right? So let's select this one. Not showing anything. What about this one? Yeah, let's go inside. Okay. Now you can see the input. So input is basically about text field, right? So, and you can see that it has name and it has ID. So if you have name and ID, if you have two locators, name and ID, so I recommend you to go with ID. Copy this ID. And let's keep it here. Now driver dot find element by dot ID, and the ID is what we copied now. Okay, and which is going to the find element, the method find element is always going to return web element to you. Take that web element into a variable. So it's a text element, right? Let's name it as text element. Text element. So you wanted to click or you wanted to set some text there. So you wanted to set some text there, right? So for doing that, let's use send keys. Okay, send keys, and let's type appium. Fine. So I recommend before you do the send case, clear it first. Clear the text field. If there is any text already there, this clear method will clear the text on the text field, and then it will enter send case, that is appium. So if you don't clear it, and if there is any text already exist, so this appium is going to be append. So that's the reason it is recommended to clear it first. Yeah, send case, that's it. Let's do this one. And I recommend before you find the element, driver.find element, make sure you give the enough time. Now we have seen that how much time it is taken to load the web page. Okay, I just given 30 seconds. I think that's not going to be help us. Let's give some 100 seconds. As I'm working on the emulator, I'm going to use 100 seconds. Otherwise, if it is a real device, you can use 30 seconds. That should be fine. Now let's run this code and make sure it is working fine. So before running your code, make sure your Appium server is running. Your Appium server is up and running. Okay, I already launched the Appium server. So before running your code, make sure your Appium server is running. And you have to give the Appium URL, the IP address where your Appium server is running, and the port on which port your Appium server is listening. So you need to give these two things and form the URL. So let's see the Android emulator and see what happens. So you can also try to understand what Appium server is doing. Okay, so it's trying to open the browser. So it's trying to launch com.android.browser activity. So activity is nothing but the screen, the browser screen. Yeah, now you can see it is trying to launch the browser. And it is trying to launch google.com. it has launched the google.com, and yeah, it is still launching. So that's the reason I have given the managed time, implicit time as 100 seconds. You can see that. So I know it's going to take some time. And it is still in the process of launching the application. So once it launch the application, it's going to find the element. Okay. So if it is going to find the element, you can also able to see the logs here. Now let's look at, it's going to using ID value lstib, right? So it is printed something. Let's look at here. So it's trying to find out the element by using ID and value lstib. So once the element found, it will start send the keys to the text field. And it's find the element. Now it is trying to enter the value app here. You can see that. Yeah, you can see that it's entering the values. Typically, it will not be this much slow. If you are using a real device, definitely you can see the fastness as we are working on Android emulator. So it will be responding slow only. Okay, so that's it. We are done. So let's look at our script. Clear the text and send the keys. That's it. We are done. Now the question is, how do you close the browser? So if you want to close a application, you used driver.close app. If you want to close a native application, we used driver.close app. This is not a native application. This is a application that is open on the browser. It's a web application, right? So to close the web application, you have to use driver.close. Okay, there are two close. One is just close, is nothing but closing the web application, and close app is nothing but closing the native app or hybrid app. Okay, so close app can be used for closing the native app or hybrid app. So that's about running the RPM automation code for a web application on the Android browser. If you want to do the same thing on the Chrome browser, make sure you use Chrome here. In place of browser, you can use Chrome. Okay, so and to use, it's not sufficient if you use just Chrome. That's not sufficient. Make sure you have a Chrome application installed in your Android device. Then only it works. Otherwise, it will fail. Okay. If you want to work with Chrome, make sure you install the Chrome application in your Android device, then use Chrome. So that's all about running the automation on the web application